welcome to Corner Comics, your weekly comic book reading club. My friends and I get together, we share a few issues, and then we talk about those issues. Most of the time, we pick two issues each. This week's no different. Um, Gentlemen, how you doing this Saturday?
I
Rising to
am.
the oh, please, after you, God sir.
We're both great. I am great. I'm rising to the occasion. Hi,
Oh,
beat you to
oh, you stole it. So I'm going to
it.
say I am amazing because God made me so.
They always say that you should point out each person when you're doing this, but I always think it's funny to see who talks first.
That's okay. I like a little competition. Makes me grow.
Manuel, where can people find you on the web?
You can find me at Instagram at MEM_MAN_YOU_EL Manuel. See you there.
All right, and Russ?
You can find me on the Twitter at Walrus at WALLRUSS. You can also find me on blacksuperherofan.com as well as comiccreatorsofcolor.com. See you there.
Nice. All right, so we were talking just before we went live. I don't think I've ever had Emmanuel go first with the comic issues, so we're gonna go in reverse order this week. Emmanuel, which two issues are you bringing to the table?
All right. The two issues that I have is X-Men, Ultimate X-Men, Volume 1, Issue number 3. And then the second issue is The Flash, Volume 2, Issue number 71.
Russ, which are you bringing?
I notice I've been doing a lot of image lately. This is
You
no
have.
different. Uh, the first one I bring in is called Curse Words. Volume 1 came out, the first issue came out in 2017. And the second issue I have is DCeased Unkillables. DCeased is DC's version of Marvel Zombies, but a whole different conversation. But anyway, this is sort of the aftermath of the DCeased series.
All right, and for myself, I have Silver Surfer Annual Number 1 from 2018, and Marvel's Voices Number 1, which just came out this week, and is hopefully an ongoing anthology series. We'll see. It might just be a one shot. Um, I do want to talk about BitChute. So I've started uploading all of our episodes on BitChute. The cool thing about BitChute is if you want to support me directly, you can do that. Help me get a new computer, maybe up the production values on our show. Hope to see you there and watching. I've noticed we've actually got quite a few views on BitChute. We seem to have a little more exposure there than we do on YouTube.
Nice.
I do like YouTube for the fact that we can do live streaming, which is not something you could do on a lot of other platforms. But yeah, it would be helpful if you're watching this on BitChute. Leave a comment, like the video, share it. That would be extremely helpful. All right, jumping into it, we'll go into Manuel, your first pick, Ultimate X-Men number 3, dude. Before you start. I'm very proud of you for choosing an X-Men comic to bring to the show, and I'm kind of curious. Did you pick it because of Mark Miller, or how did you come upon your decision?
Well, I remember where and when it was. It was in the late 90s. And I just saw the issue. It jumped out at me. I was curious. I had really liked X-Men prior to this, but this Ultimate Universe, this was the inception of it. This was the start of the Ultimate Universe. So I was wondering, this X-Men universe kind of looks new. Everything's starting from scratch. So that's what really drew me in was the art itself, not necessarily the writer.
Okay.
So getting into it, this is issue number 3 of the Ultimate X-Men. And I like the art. The art drew me in initially, but then the characters, they're for a kid in the late 90s, if you wanted to just start over fresh, all these other characters had predated me from like years ago. They already had their fantastic history. and I was aware of the characters, but then this actually, they started out, so I was starting with them. It's a brand new storyline, brand new universe, brand new world. I could pick who I love based off of not necessarily their history, but based off of their character, and I would kind of grow alongside them. So as they evolved, I evolved, and I really liked it for that. And what you guys think?
Well, I'll go. Uh, I like the Ultimate Universe. Period. One of the good things about the Ultimate Universe and this X-Men book in particular is the characters you love not bogged down by continuity. You don't have to know what came before. You don't have to. None of that ever matters or is in the way of you enjoying this book. This book has plenty of witty banter and dialogue and action. All the things you want in a good comic book are here. The art is good. Uh, in some ways very detailed, in some ways not as detailed as I would like. I honestly, though, did miss some continuity points. For example, Quicksilver was nothing at all. Like what is Quicksilver's personality? Like, everybody's personality, but what exactly is Quicksilver's personality? And a lot of that is bogged down in the continuity in his history. Here, he was just a smart mouth fast dude. I didn't feel like there was much more here, but there were a lot of characters to service in a book of this size. You got a whole lot of different X-Men, not just 3 or 4. You got all these Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. So to write and tell a story in which everybody got some shine is obviously going to be challenging, if it's even possible. Like, can you imagine a full-on X-Men movie where there were 30 mutants fighting and they all get a story arc?
Yeah.
Like, can you get that done in 2 hours? Comic books are better at that. This does all those things. Good book. There's a lot to like here. Most of the characters still seem to operate and behave in a way that you've known them from previous continuity. You didn't lose any of that, yet there's still some fresh and newness to it. There are a couple things I didn't like about this universe. One, isn't this the universe where who was it? Scarlet Witch and Pietro kissed each other on the cover of one of the Avengers, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Right, like they were full on, booty grabbing or whatever it was. It was romantic, and I'm like, that's a brother. So I like that they did some things, and some things I'm like, come on, don't just break the toys if you're gonna play with them. Don't just like ruin them for everyone else. But it took chances. So all in all, good book. I enjoyed it. However, these characters only exist in another parallel Earth. So if you're going to like the X-Men, you need to bring it on back. These characters are all gone. Most of them even died. Even though I know there was a book you brought up before where they went back over to that universe,
Yeah.
but a lot of them are dead. This is not that world. So the question is your love of X-Men now over because we can't uncontinuitify them? Is that a word? Continuity.
I mean, in continuity, in the world of fantasy like this, you could probably bring some sort of someone, maybe magic or like one character to just revamp the whole thing, bring that particular universe back. Of course, you would have to, in the real world, you have to bring back the writers, the author, maybe. But I don't know. For right now, my love of X-Men maybe have died with the Ultimate Universe.
Oh man.
Question mark.
Died.
Question mark.
But it can still be redeemed.
If you
world
don't
of fantasy,
really love them, if you don't love them, you either love them or you don't. You can't be like, I don't like the way they act over here, so I don't love them. Come on, you gotta be full on in it, man. Anyway, I just play it. But yeah, I like the X-Men. Continuity is part of what the history of X-Men, what makes them, you know what I mean? Avengers can change teams all the time, and even X-Men do sometimes, but X-Men has always been continuity heavy to me.
Yeah. I remember when this came out, I had been away from comics for a really long time, and X-Men were always my favorite. So I jumped at the chance to sort of dig into Ultimate X-Men, and I liked a lot of the stuff that they did, especially all of them going through the Weapon X program. Some of the things that they did with the characters, like Wolverine being an agent of Magneto is kind of interesting. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a lot here. Earth 1610, our favorite writer Bendis, like apparently that's his brainchild. Um,
Bendis.
right. I'm sure it wasn't just him by himself. I think there's a few other writers that are credited with helping create the 1610 universe. But yeah, so the X-Men book that I brought a few weeks back, where the X-Men fall into the Ultimate Universe, that was written by Bendis, right? It's sort of a throwback to his old work. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm just happy that Emmanuel brought an X-Men book, and hopefully we can continue this.
It is a one shot.
All right.
Speaking of long shot, another X-Men.
So yeah, that was my my little homage to X-Men. I don't find it's gonna happen again, but who knows?
All right. You guys want to get into the next one, Emmanuel?
Sure. My next issue is The Flash. I am a long-standing Flash fan as well. I love the television show, even the 90s television show. So I really love The Flash and all Flashes, whether it be Barry, Art, Wally, Jay. It really doesn't matter. I love that concept. So this issue is sort of a time, it's year one. So you get to see the future Flash as well as the origin of the Flash. So it's time travel. If you're dealing with Flashes, you're dealing with very fantastic issues, and time travel is one of them. This is, it's great. It's good. It's a lot to like, in my opinion. What do you guys think?
I'll go ahead and start because I know Russ is gonna dig into the fact that they're redoing his origin. I don't particularly follow a whole lot of DC. The Flash is not one of my favorite characters. I really like this book from the art to the way that they did the story. It feels kind of like a Doctor Who story almost, which I thought was kind of cool. And I think I put in the show notes timey-wimey. It feels very timey-wimey. The one thing that I didn't like was the reveal of the villain. I thought that was kind of anticlimactic. I'm like, the turtle, come on, but he looks cool. Yeah, it's a fun issue. I think I like the art more than anything else, though. There were a couple of panels where the artist really showed off the Flash's powers unlike anything I've ever seen before. So, like, there's one panel where he saves a girl from getting hit by a car, and the way that his like swoosh was done and him, saving her was just, I don't know, really cool and original. And the way that the panels sort of come together was good. I'm not sure why. Is it because it's an origin story? Is why he just has t-shirt and jeans? He doesn't have a full uniform?
Yeah, he's not the Flash that we know yet. He's just still kind of figuring out his powers.
Yes.
He's seeing, yeah, it's
Yeah, it's that I've got the powers or some powers, and I haven't worked into the whole identity thing yet.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, overall, I could see myself maybe getting into the newer issues from here, just to kind of check up on it, maybe here and there. I don't know that I'd consistently read it, but it was enjoyable. It was kind of cool. I just the art really took me through.
Okay, I like the art except for the faces. The art is okay. The faces and the eyes just distract me heavily from everything else. I don't mind the movement, all of that, how everything worked is fine. I don't like that they're messing with his origin. To me, this is a Wally West story is what should have happened, as opposed to Flash. Because Flash was older than Wally West was when he got his powers, right? Now
Mhm.
it seems like they're de-aging him a bit in order to tell this story, right? Flash was already a grown-ass man and a scientist, okay? He's already a scientist. That's not a 2-year gig at community college, right? So he's got to be at least somewhere close to 30 in theory, but here he looks 22, right? Sort of acts 22. And again, this make me think they're trying to Wally Westonize Barry Allen.
Mhm.
Because Wally West is my Flash, though, right? That's my Flash. He is the only Teen Titan who successfully took over in a permanent way for his mentor, right?
Right.
No other Teen Titan is ever able to do that, right? Red Arrow never became Green Arrow. You know, Dick Grayson did become Batman for a while, but you knew it was temporary when it happened, right? You know, he was going to go back. Everyone else but Wally West took over, became the Flash, the Justice League Flash, and the best, most powerful Flash there ever was. Right? He fulfilled, he improved on the model, right? And then of course they took everything away, and I got some issue behind that, right? But for the last 20 years, Wally West has been that Flash. Then all of a sudden you change time, and now we're back to Barry Allen, who is not as interesting, right? Right now he's sort of a bumbler, but nothing about him as a person to me, and I read this run, by the way, makes me say, you know, interested in him. I may be interested in this story. I like a nice year one thing and all the stupid mistakes you make when you're first starting out. And I get that. But it doesn't make me like the Flash more. When you look at his character, right, you can see what's happening to him. That's interesting. But is Barry interesting? That's the real question. Future Barry's interesting. All right.
Yeah.
And I didn't find Barry Allen, the character, to be that interesting here. But I was moved by, and then you got to think, I know you didn't like the turtle, but if there's a speed force and there's a slow force, what is the slow force like? What does it do? What's the science of it? That interests me. I think this arc is only like 3 issues long or something. So if you want to check it out, feel free.
Okay.
It's there. So I'm interested in the science of that. I'm interested in the story, but I'm not very interested in Barry Allen, like the character. Like, what do you get? What kind of person is Barry Allen in this, right? Is he super good? No, not necessarily. Is he super, you know, smart? Well, maybe book smart. So what is it about him that says, I like Barry Allen? And if this was instead a Wally West story, would it have made a difference? So that's my issue with it. But again, I'm bringing my own bias because I am a Flash fan. I am a DC guy. And I feel like this, you know, I think they're just trying to make Barry Allen interesting again to new readers and new users. And I like the stories. I just don't think the character, I don't think I care enough about him. And I didn't get there with this.
I could see them putting elements of more interesting Flashes like Wally, and even some well, it's the kid, not Wally West, but the other kid Flash.
Impulse? Yeah.
Yeah. I could see some elements being put into Barry Allen to make him more fleshed out, more interesting. But I completely get what you're saying about the not usurping, but the actual coming to realize himself as a Flash, Wally. That's because of the nature of the Flash. The Flash is like live fast and you're gone. They're almost always dying in some way, shape, or form. They're disappearing, going into the Speed Force, giving their life. I think that's just the nature of the Flash costume or mantle.
See, I can agree that's part of it, but I can tell you the difference between Impulse and Wally West, right? And personality wise, right?
Yeah.
You could tell it to me, right? We could talk about the other Flashes and their personality and what makes them unique that is somewhat separate from their powers. What's Barry? Can you describe Barry that way?
His whole thing was the Flash Force started with him, which is weird because you have Jay Garrett, which didn't really have the Flash Force. He had, what was it, hard water that made him a speedster. So
I'm looking for personality.
Yeah, that's.
And so
It'd
I
be hard
agree
for us
with
to
you, their
find.
story, because every class has a unique relationship with the Speed Force. But you and I can talk about Wally West's personality, both of them. You and I can talk about Bart Allen's personality, both of them. And yet
Hmm.
Powers is part of that, but there's a personality unique to them. That's why every speedster is different. I don't think Barry has one. I don't think it showed up in this book. And this is not to say this is not a good book. I did enjoy it. I did enjoy the story and those things I talked about. But who is Barry Allen? Is he just a dude?
Great question.
Yeah, I'm kind of stuck in the '90s with the TV show in terms of
Yeah,
my
yeah,
relation
and
with.
I like that. And I don't know, and you guys probably didn't watch where they did, what do they call that? When all the CW universes came together.
Crisis of Infinite Earths.
Yeah,
I haven't watched
and
it
they
yet, but I
brought,
will.
and you did see that, and you see what when they brought him back to run that final treadmill. Did you see that part?
I haven't watched it
Yes.
yet, but I will. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So they brought that guy, that Barry Allen, in that uniform,
Right.
older now, talking to the Flash, into this story.
Okay.
And and the great thing about it's still TV, it's still CW, but the great thing about these 3 or 4 issues is that they canonized every other DC TV show you have ever seen on any network ever at any time were part of this story.
Okay.
Birds of Prey, everything. Got it, not even Holy whatever Batman, even he was there with Ace the Bat Hound. You know what I mean? Everybody, right, was there. And so even if they only were in screen for like, 60, 75 seconds,
Even
everything was there.
Lucifer,
Yes,
which is
even
a
Lucifer
DC
for the
property.
TV show, that Lucifer showed up in there, right? So just for a fan who has ever watched any of those things in the past, for whatever reason, and you can get it on the CW app, totally legally free. You can watch all those episodes,
Yeah.
and I suggest you do. But even on this TV show, that's what worries me about the Flash CW TV show. Trying to get and figure out what Barry's personality is, because even the Wally West on that TV show, who I don't really like, has a very distinct personality that you can describe. I feel like Barry is milk toast. You know what I mean? Just sort of mercurial and just going with being whatever the moment requires instead of, Arrow who decides, well, this is what I'm going to do. The universe need to get behind my shit. You know what I mean? So that worries me about the Barry Allen character across all. This is why when Wally took over, it was the greatest thing ever. Anyway, I know we spent a lot of time on this, but
All right, Russ, you want to do your first issue then?
sure. My first issue is Curse Words, #1 by Image. And I just thought that it friggin' looked cool as hell. It was wild, it was colorful, it was action, it was cussing, it was craziness, it was unpredictable. And I thought, well, just what a ride. And, and this provided that. It's visually good. There's a story here to watch. And then, by the end, you wonder who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, all of that. I think it sort of delivered on a lot of levels. But just for me, what a fun feast visually and story-wise. What do you think?
Yeah, this kind of reminded me of the issue that you brought in a couple of weeks ago with all of the pastels and the Dragon Ball Z that was going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Artwork is phenomenal. I like what they did with the panels and having like the chevron cutouts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Was kind of interesting. Have either of you read Transmetropolitan?
I know of it, but I never stopped to read it.
Okay. This character kind of reminds me a little bit of shoot, now I'm gonna forget his name. The main character of Transmetropolitan. Spider.
The one with the
Spider.
2-color glasses.
Yeah, Spider Jerusalem. So the first issue when he comes down from seclusion, he's got a big beard and stuff, and so this is. It's kind of like Spider Jerusalem, the character, if he had magic. And then obviously I can draw parallels. I've made some notes in the show notes with regards to Elder Scrolls and the character of Sheol Gorath, who is this crazy demigod. Yeah, it was good. It was fun. The artwork's fantastic. I'm not really sure where this is going. Is it just a bunch of wizards that show up and fight each other?
I refuse to spoil a book.
Okay.
If you want more, you know where to go.
Yeah.
The question is, do you want more enough to read another issue?
I'm not sure yet. I might
Okay.
read through this again and see where I'm at the end of the issue. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was a feast. It was visually appealing. It drew me through. Great action. Yeah.
Yeah. My take would be I like the art. The art is great. It is really good. And I also like the character arc in that you see him as he is now, present day, and then you see what kind of led up to that point, how he is not a native to this world, and then getting into this world, seeing things from his perspective. Then as time goes on, even though from his immediate perspective, he looks at the world with disdain and because it's unfamiliar. And then as time goes on, he kind of warms up to the way of life, the way of life that I think I think he's in New York. So the New York way of life. And then at the end, like, is he a good guy? Is he more, I want to say villain than hero, but anti-hero is kind of in there as well. It reminds me of a like Thor mixed with Doctor Strange, mixed with the intrepidness or the enterprisingness of Tony Stark, because he has his own business, monetizing magic in a sense. So I appreciate this character. I can see him, and then at the very end, um, I'm here to help while he does something really not so helpful, but it's beneficial for his social media platform. It's great. I really like the fact that they incorporated like that social media aspect, hashtag, talking about his koala. I forget the koala's name, but it's good. It's a fun story.
Wizord. Is it Wizord or something like Wizord or something like that? I think.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if he's necessarily an anti-hero. He's just sort of chaotic.
But chaotic good, chaotic bad.
Chaotic neutral. He's self-interested is the way that I see it. It's like, I don't know.
No, that's I hear you. I just wanted to see try to flesh out what your full take on it. And so I thought if you're looking for a book that's a feast, this is a feast in a one issue. Like if you don't go any farther, does this book, because not all books we put up here provide the money's worth.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like this book gives you what you paid for. It's got your action. It's visually beautiful. Leaves you with questions. Gives you a long enough story arc for you to follow. You also the character, you don't know if you love him or you hate him or you love to hate him, and it puts you in a place where you can't decide by the end. I think all of that makes this as one issue a good book and a recommend, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Hashtag Team Margaret.
Team Margaret. Okay. All right. Anything else?
No.
Okay. So moving on to my second issue, which is DCeased Unkillables. For the story of DCeased, this is DC's versions of Marvel Zombies, in my opinion. Instead, they are using the anti-life equation. Apparently, if you see it, and apparently it gets into technology, and if you ever see it on a screen anywhere, and who doesn't watch a screen every day, then it basically turns you into a zombie. And so in that series, the Unkillable series, a lot of characters you know and love are dead. Most violently, they either have to be killed or they kill each other or whatever, and a whole bunch of them is not left. And you watch that. So that's a mini series. So they created their own universe to do this, right? And so this is a series. It's a 3-issue series. It's only issue number 1, just came out. This is a series of what happens to some of those characters that are left. What is their story? Anyone?
I'll go first.
Go ahead.
I absolutely hate zombies.
Good.
Just in general, I'm just kind of sick of media, video games, comic books, everybody using zombies. That being said, I really like Deathstroke. I think he's a really interesting and cool character. So I was back and forth on this one. I was like, oh, well, it starts off with Deathstroke, and I like him, so let's follow his story. And then it gets into the Jason Todd stuff. I'm like, I don't really care. Just zombies, whatever. Um, and then it goes back to Deathstroke. I'm like, okay, I can follow this. So that was kind of my journey through the book. I thought the artwork was mediocre. There are certain panels that stand out more than others, but there's the faces on some of the panels they look weird. They're not drawn properly. I don't feel like. Um, it's kind of an interesting take on the whole zombies thing, and it's interesting to see where would the DC universe be in a post-apocalyptic or a zombie apocalypse. So that's interesting. Does the anti-life stuff affect Deathstroke in any way though? Because
Oh yes, it
like
actually did. And so, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in. So it affected him immediately, and then he woke up after his healing factor had beat
right,
it. But he had already gone on whatever kind of murder spree. So he woke up in the middle of that spree in another city after his healing factor has taken over. So it definitely affected him. His particular healing factor brought him back, but not until he had done all kind of carnage. He was a full-on zombie and everything. And so he blacked out,
right.
did all whatever he had to do, and then you see him in the next panel where he woke up somewhere else with murder in his hands and in the middle of whatever the apocalypse was.
Yeah,
So yes, it did affect.
because his daughter straight like puts a sword through his neck, and then he's like, "Oh no, I'm fine." In the next panel, it's like,
Well, I mean, I'm sure he can take the sword out. I mean, he still has the healing factor, but you know, how powerful is the anti-life equation? Is it in your DNA? If
well,
it's in your DNA, then maybe it takes longer, as opposed to a sword could just close up a wound. You know, with the healing
yeah.
factor.
I mean, maybe I don't know. That was kind of the question I kept asking myself was like, is he even on like a higher level than Wolverine in this book because of that, or because I always felt like his healing factor was on par with Wolverine.
Yeah, and again, like I think it's the magic of the anti-life equation you have to take into consideration.
Okay.
This is God level magic, so you don't just shake that like you shake a stab wound,
Right.
right? And even Wolverine, I remember changing into a brood almost, for example, before he came all the way back, right?
Yeah.
Even though he has an amazing healing factor. So if the brood thing can do that, then certainly the anti-life equation should be able to.
So
All right, Emmanuel, what you got? Give it to me straight.
All right. The art. I think the art was basic in that it didn't really stand out, but it didn't stand out for negative reasons as well. So it was serviceable. It was good. It flowed nicely, didn't get in the way of the storyline. The storyline reminds me a lot of when I fell in love with Walking Dead. I am since not a Walking Dead fan because of all the stuff that's went on, different changes. But this reminds me of The Walking Dead when it was good, when I liked it. The chaos all around, and you have these characters that haven't been influenced by the chaos directly, but they've been indirectly influenced by all the chaos that's around them and how it's affected and has affected their loved ones. A really good scene was when Jason Todd was in the Bat Cave and what he found there. I really appreciate the fact that they don't automatically go to, oh, the smartest mind. He can figure anything out. Bruce Wayne, he's still alive. He's the MacGuffin. I really appreciate the fact that they just took him off the table. That, to me, makes the writing more unique because where do we go from here?
And I
Who
want to
is
recommend.
the right?
Sorry to interrupt. I want to recommend you take a look at the original DCeased miniseries, where you
Okay.
see how and why he died, where you get to how he fought it and ultimately lost. that might interest you.
Okay. But I like the fact that this issue didn't go there. It didn't just go to the big brain and say, Bruce Wayne to figure it out. That's such an easy out. This didn't take that route. This is okay. What happens when you take that off the table and you have Jason Todd as the pillar of the Bat family, along with others, and then you have the villains now. They're grouping together, and in a world where it's filled with zombies, there's kind of sort of no good and evil. Like it's all alive and dead. So therefore, like well, are they going to team up? What's Vandal Savage's plan? He's an immortal. How does it affect him? And then there's another guy on the team with the healing factor, the Creeper. Not too familiar with him. He's always looked like a Joker knockoff to me, but I was unaware that he had a healing factor. I have my postulates about that as well. Like, would his healing factor be the same as Deathstroke, or would it turn negatively against them? I don't know. It's interesting. I'm interested to see where the writer will take it from here.
For me, some of the artwork reminded me of, who's that guy who does Stark stuff? Is it Frank Quietly?
Yeah. I'm not a fan of his art at all.
Yeah, so this to me was similar to that in a lot of ways. There is detail here. You know what I mean? I don't want to take away from the fact that there's a lot of detailed drawings, even though it may not be drawn to the proportion that I like.
Yeah.
I feel like the color and the details, the creases in the clothes, all of those things are there. All the elements of good art, I believe, are there. The color choice, now, whether it's drawn to the way that I like, I feel like there's definitely some effort here to bring you that detail. So I liked that. Like you really put your, you didn't, whatever you were drawing, you may not be my favorite artist, but you did not phone this in.
Yeah, that's fair. I can agree with that.
Yeah. So, and I like a story where I can't see the answer, right? Yeah. Now Batman's dead, right? And most of the big build, is Superman dead too? If all these guys go, what is this world? What is this like? And if a Walking Dead show took place in the DC universe after the death of these heroes, is that not something worth following?
Yeah.
Right? And you trust the Injustice, and some of the people on Injustice universe worked on this series as well. So if you want to find that story, and you sick of Injustice and everything else, this might be it for you. Just a thought. Anyway, I'm glad you almost enjoyed it.
I'm kind of curious. One last thing is Jason Todd insane in the normal books?
Yes.
Okay.
100%. Yeah. So here's the thing: he died, and then he only came back because some Superboy Prime from other universe smashed the continuum.
Okay.
Right? And then he got put into the Lazarus pit. Is there anyone that's been to the Lazarus pit that's not insane?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's on him forever. Right? And he was a kid when it happened, right? He wasn't a grown man.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So you put a kid in the Lazarus pit after a violent death and being beat by the Joker with what did he beat him with again? Crowbar, right? So you beat a kid to death by a crowbar. He feels himself dying and he sees that, and then you put him in the Lazarus pit. What do you get? So yes, he is crazy. I mean, I don't even know if is that even a question. He's a crazy nephew that we allow in the family. He has a history with us, right? Everybody's got one at the bat picnic. Right. There's a crazy one, right? Yeah. Let's go with the what is it, the X-Men book, X-Men #1, the new one, where they had the crazy Summers brother, right? Know he's crazy.
Yeah, Vulcan, yeah.
Right? But you just walk around and let him cook you pies and stuff, bake you pies, right? You trust him, right? He's crazy enough to jack up the whole universe, right? So yes, he's crazy. And what is his book out? Red Hood and the Outlaws? It's still an ongoing series.
Okay.
Right? He's still crazy. But he got his own Wonder Woman and Superman.
Really?
Yeah. But is that bad? Is the Punisher crazy? Is Daredevil crazy?
To a lesser degree, I
right?
think.
Because I get you. I will kick you in your Marvel if you're really trying to go there.
No, I was just thinking about how he put Joker's corpse on the front of the Batmobile.
Yes.
Like,
If the Joker killed you with a crowbar, you don't think that's in the wheelhouse?
maybe, yeah.
He was sad that he didn't get a chance to kill Joker.
Yeah, and Batman won't let him kill Joker.
Right.
Right? And Batman didn't avenge him. Hell yeah, he got some issues. But you don't say anything about the Punisher or Daredevil like they're sacrosanct. I'm telling you, crazy abounds.
I'm gonna go use the restroom real quick. I'll be right back.
All right, don't fall in. I heard it's slippery when it gets wet. Talk about crazy heroes. Marvel is the king of crazy heroes.
Well, yeah. I think we talked about it last week, right? DC has more of a tendency to do the more God aspect, and Marvel's more the human aspect.
Yes. But everything less than the God version, everything other than the Batman in the family is less than the Bat. Yes?
Right, yeah.
Right? So therefore, one of them's going to be crazy. Some of them are going to be levels of crazy, right? Good or bad. Even with Superman, right? No one has the moral fiber in the Superman family as Superman. Supergirl doesn't match that. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She may match the powers, or she may be superior to powers in some way, but no other Kryptonian matches that. Everyone else is a shade of Superman, right? And you know, that's the thing, because remember when Superman started and Batman started way back when, right? And they do this for every hero that you love, right? Once we had a Spider-Man, now there are 17 different Spider people, right?
Right.
I can name, right? Once we had a Wolverine, right? How many different Wolverine-ish characters do we have now?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Once we had a Batman, right? Now there's 17 members of the Bat family. Every hero, once there was one Flash, right? Now there's 17 Flashes. They all know each other. Every hero that's an iconic hero, there's even more than one Atom now. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's always going to be that, and they all have to be unique, and one of them is always going to be crazy. So yes, right? There's a crazy Flash. There's a crazy Superman-ish. There's a crazy Bat. There's a
crazy Spider-Man.
Well, am I going to the multiverse, or am I going to just say superior Spider-Man and say enough said?
Okay.
There you go.
Alrighty. Any final thoughts on DCeased?
Nope. I'm good. And I didn't know Creeper had a healing factor either.
All right. Moving on, my first issue of the week is The Silver Surfer. This is the annual that came out in 2018. The reason that I chose this book was I was specifically looking for a Silver Surfer story to bring on. I don't know why. He's just been one of my more liked characters in recent memory. And I've been on my own personal journey to try and find some good Silver Surfer stories. So I found this. I think it's got good art. I think it's got a good allegory. It's kind of typical for Silver Surfer, but it was still an enjoyable ride. So I decided to share that. And I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are.
I'll go.
Okay.
First off, I have always thought the Silver Surfer was kind of laughable, the character itself, simply because like the name. I mean, I get it. It's really on the nose. Like, look, that guy's silver. He's the Silver Surfer. And then also with the name, his last name is literally Rad. So you have a surfboarder with the last name Rad. I
see what you did there.
It's so on the nose that I was like, no, I'm not going to give this character a chance. And he's not gained popularity. He's been popular ever since I can remember. But I didn't stay away primarily for that. I think my aversion to him was because he soars the universe. That's not really relatable to me. I guess he sees all these planets and cultures, and his homeworld is he sacrificed that because otherwise they would have all been consumed by Galactus. I get the appeal. I just never really had an emotional connection to him. I say that to say this book has kind of not necessarily changed that, but it's made me see the appeal in a more direct way. I've read a few Silver Surfer books, but this is by far my favorite one that I've read so far. But keep in mind the bar is very low.
Okay.
I
So
like the art. The art really reminds me of Frank Quietly, more so than the other one. It's kind of circular and square and sketchy, but that's not a bad thing. I don't know how to describe it other than circular, square, and sketchy. It's horrible descriptions, by the way. But the allegory of Earth, I saw it coming. It was predictable, yet still entertaining.
okay, so I also like the art. There were some parts I didn't like. I wasn't a fan of the faces, but all in all, the whole everything coming together was good. I like the color choices and the art in no way, and the art did contribute to me enjoying the story, so it didn't get in the way of it at all. So I have been a Silver Surfer. Now remember, Silver Surfer was created in 1966. So back then, when you're creating names like Peter Parker and Richard Rider and every other little thing you can think of, and how all these people have names based on their powers, that's not, they always did that back then, right?
Yeah.
Everybody, if you have, if you have Earth power, somehow your name has something to do with the Earth. Like your name is Terrence for Terror or something like that, right? They always did that back in the day. So all those old wild characters, I think. I mean, and whose really name is Doctor Strange? I mean, really? Stephen Strange, and that's how you're gonna. Okay. So anyway, I think that's just a part of the time these characters were created. So I enjoy good Silver Surfer yarn. If any of you have the Disney Channel or access to it, that animated series that was only one season, which was one of the better Marvel animated shows of its time. I think it was ahead of its time.
Yeah, 13 episodes. It does an amazing job of replicating Kirby's style.
Yeah. So if you have access or you have YouTube or something to that effect, I would highly recommend take some time and watch that animated series. Worth your time. That being said, I'm on the fence as to whether Silver Surfer is a hero. And I can pull things directly from this book to make me say that. One is, we know that in order to spare his planet, he says, I will be your herald. Please spare my planet, right? That in and of itself is selfless, right? But he's also responsible for the murder of a whole bunch of beings, right?
Right.
He just is, and probably countless. So entire species wiped off the planet. Is that worth his one planet? I don't know. Then there's a part in here where he even says he did it for his woman. Right? I'm like, really? Your woman is worth all the species in all the worlds and all the land, and you probably didn't even get in. Are you friggin' kidding me? Right? So that, makes me think, yes, there's some altruistic to him, but it's not human. He's not human, right? It's not human society. And I'm not giving him full-on good guy status. I'm giving him, he's the meter pegs in the arrow, in the way of good, but he ain't full-on good guy, right? And if you look in the latest Avengers, you'll get some conversation about that, who he is, because, Silver Surfer, if he wants things to be a certain way, he will kill you. He may try not to kill you, but if you're in the way he thinks it's got to be this way, he'll wipe you out. And he can do that. He can rearrange molecules, right? The second thing that occurred to me, and these are new things that came from this book, is that in order to make him forget that he's a straight up murder facilitator, Galactus wipes his memory. How many times do you think Galactus did that in the history of all of this, right? And is the Silver Surfer we now know a ripped up memory version of himself with no real guilt for what he's done, not really knowing how bad it really is? Yeah. You know what I mean? Or just a damage, because how many times can you wipe someone's memory selectively and not cause neurological damage, right? So is the Silver Surfer crazy? Since we're on the crazy thing, yes, Silver Surfer is crazy. He thinks his woman is worth the life of entire species and entire planets. That being said, I enjoyed the book. It looked good. It was fun. I enjoyed the story. Uh, and I would recommend this as a good read. But, I came in here with a Silver Surfer in my head, and this story adjusted it a little bit.
All right, very cool. Yeah, I would say he was originally introduced as a villain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is that, um, and there's no timestamp on Zenlaw and when he becomes the Herald of Galactus. So from the time that he becomes the Herald of Galactus to the time that he reaches Earth, how many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years have elapsed, right? Because the power cosmic effectively makes him immortal. Galactus is basically immortal.
Yeah, and I understand from different readings that Galactus eats a planet about once a month. So how many months is that?
Right, yeah. So I don't know. Interesting things to think about. I'm glad that you guys did enjoy it. Um, any final thoughts?
Fun fact. Because he has to travel so fast in space, he may rival the Flash's speed as the fastest character in the comic universe.
What if I say, remember last year we talked about strength levels and you get to this point you can't measure it?
Yeah.
What if I say speed is the same? Right? You say you say can Flash run at hyperspace speeds? Do we know what his upper limit is? Is there a meter?
I would say yes, he can, because if he's traveling through time, then that's hyperspace speeds.
So when you say rival, I don't know, because Silver Surfer doesn't travel through time.
Well,
once you get to a certain point,
yeah,
you don't really measure. It's like once everybody can bench press 100 tons, they're all Superman, but they're not, right? Once everyone can apparently pass the speed of light, they all have the same speed, but they're not. What is beyond the speed of light? What is the next speed limit? What is the next speed limit after that?
Yeah.
Right? Can you outrun death? Right? I don't know what that, and we don't have any way to measure. We could say they're all speedsters, but who's to say that he can react as fast as Flash can?
It reminds me of the calculations they do on death battles.
Yeah, and I do like a good death battle. Yeah.
Yeah, they actually take this calculation and pit it up against this calculation. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't done the calculations. I was just thinking about how the type of speed it would take to get to one planet to another planet, another sector altogether, another area of space. And then if he has a month to prepare, that would be amazing.
Did you see the death battle between Miles Morales and Static?
I have not.
You need to
check that out.
Yes, that's right in your wheelhouse. Who does win in that battle? Who do you got?
Right, but we'll see.
Yeah, but that's emotion based. You really sure? I mean, Static is smarter in some ways, but is he spider speed fast?
And he can't go invisible, so there's that element of surprise. Yeah, it's interesting.
And he doesn't match the strength level of Miles Morales either, who can still pick up a car and throw it at you.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just think it's a fight worth your time to see, so I recommend.
I definitely will.
All right. My second issue of the week is Marvel's Voices. This is an anthology series that was put together by the people that do the podcast. I believe is of the same name. I've never actually listened to the podcast. I didn't know that it existed. I'm going to butcher his name. Hopefully not, though. Evan Narcisse or Narcissi. I've followed him for years. He's done work for IO9 and Kotaku, and I think that he's written for CBR and a couple of the other online publications that cover video games and comic books. He wrote one of the quote-unquote stories in this anthology book and posted it on Twitter. And that was how I found out about this. I woke up Wednesday morning. I was on Twitter. I saw him post about it. And then I found out that Method Man apparently wrote one of the stories, and I said, okay, I'm buying this when I get off work today. My own personal feeling is like this could have been a really good book, but it falls a little flat on the fact that there are like one-page stories. And the most interesting stories to me were the ones that were at least 4 pages. And I think there's a total of like 6 or 7 stories in here. And I put stories in quotes because how much of a story can you actually tell in 1 page?
Short stories.
Yeah. So what are your guys' thoughts?
I'll go. I really liked the fact that there were various artists. There's a lot to choose from, and the variety is great. I don't think any one artist has disappointed. There's unique styles, there's unique takes, and even the stories themselves are from different perspectives. So I appreciate the fact that they have different writers as well as artists. Out of the stories, I can pick and choose my favorite elements. Now, to pick and choose my favorite story would be difficult because there's a lot of good ones. There's some that are kind of just like, oh, that's a nice story, but I wouldn't necessarily choose it as one of my favorites. One example being Moon Girl and I forget her.
Devil Dinosaur.
Devil Dinosaur. Yeah, it was good. I appreciate the story itself, but it's definitely not one of my favorites. Whereas the death one with Wolverine begging, or Logan, I think, begging for death. The reason I didn't say Wolverine is because I think it was more of like his own unique self and not necessarily the fighter that was begging to die, like himself as a person, James Logan Howlett. And visually, if I had to choose, I would pick the story with what is her name? She's the White Queen.
Emma Frost.
The story is called Diamonds, or The Love of Diamonds.
A Diamond's Worth.
She's Diamonds Worth. Yeah, she's an X-Men character, so I don't feel that bad in not really remembering her name. But I really like the art in that. It didn't necessarily stand out. It's just I like that style of artistry. That it reminds me of like Spider-Man in the Marvel Universe comics. But overall, I really enjoyed the variety. Outside of anything else, outside of the art or the unique stories, the variety is what captures me and makes me want to read the next issue if it is an ongoing series.
Okay, I'm going to do a quick bullet run here.
All right.
Okay. First of all, a lot of these are really too short. It's like, I like you as a writer and need some writers. I can give you 2 or 3 pages. Can you give me a story? Yes. And so there's no, people just write whatever they feel they want to write, which is better for a writer because they get to write what they want instead of having to be within the rules of whatever, right? So it can be a love thing, right? So I like what Marvel's Voices creates. The space it creates for good stories to possibly happen within, right? Now, the 1-page stuff just wasn't enough to get me to care, right? Yep. Dr. Voodoo got 1 page, not bad, I don't care. The Krakoan team, the racing thing was a little better, and they got too many pages though.
Yeah.
You didn't need all those, right? The Black Widow one, don't care. It was different visually, but what was I supposed to walk away with that really, right? It's just a quick situated day, 5 minutes in the life of Black Widow in one instance. There was nothing for me to leave with. The 1-page dialogue with the White Queen, nice, don't really care. Nothing for what am I, you know what I'm saying? And then the other thing with the gay pride, they got another page, and I'm not against, that being spoken, because there's nothing in there for me. Now, the spider that bit Peter Parker is a fucking hero?
That was my favorite.
There's no way I could have seen that shit coming, right?
Yeah, that was my favorite story out of the whole book.
Right? I'm like, the spider can think and talk, and he's big now, and he can, and you can't even call him Spider-Man. You got to call him what? Spider? I don't know, right? So the fact that I'm waiting for that book to come out. Like, give me more, yes. And he calls himself a goddess, right? I am to be a hero, to be a goddess.
Yeah.
I'm like, so it's a female spider,
It's gotta
right?
be, right?
Right? So it's a female spider that basically created the whole Spider-Man family, right? Is responsible for all of that and is out there swinging and webbing and possibly eating super villains, whatever. Yes, that's an anti-hero if ever there was one. Whoever, and so the fact that, like I said, Marvel's voices created things where some great things can come out of. This probably never would have happened otherwise if someone didn't say, write what the hell you want, because I like you as the writer.
Yeah.
Right? So this is one of them that says, okay, read this. What I liked about, I'm trying to be brief, there's a lot of stories here. What I liked about, even though it was one page, this is the only one page that moved me, was, what is her name? Moon Girl. Because Moon Girl is supposedly one of the smartest person on the planet, smarter than Reed Richards. And she hangs around with a dinosaur as a brain of a peanut. How do you fight crime with someone who is dumb as rocks and still there be love and respect, right? And she found a way to do that, right? In no way diminishing the intellect, right? Even though he did a stupid way to get her out of her situation, she was with it. Well, let's go, right? She was with him, right? That's love. And is that not love? Right? Because, a lot of people would say, what the fuck are you doing? I'm still tied up, whatever, right? But no, she was like, okay, let's go, right? You got to get me out of this. And so I felt like some love in that, right? There's something deep here that says, I'm a super intelligent person. You will never be, you're dumb as a bag of rocks. I love you, and we are in this together. That's like the marriage you always wanted to have, right? The Nick Fury one page, I don't even want to bother. That was disgustingly stupid.
Disgustingly stupid. Nice.
Right. The other one, this is this new character that I think is an Inhuman that inhabits people's bodies. I only know of him because I read it somewhere else. But nothing in this one page made me care anything about him or tell me his story.
Yeah.
So that was a waste. The Silver Surfer. What is this? Another Silver Surfer crying about the world again? What? So what?
Right.
Whatever. Death was okay, and I like the fact that they gave Method Man a shot, but what did I end up with? Wolverine wanted to die. She said no. That's pretty much it, right?
Yeah.
Is there something else I'm supposed to walk away with? Right? And I understand Wolverine wanted to die, and I know Wolverine went through that. I'm not mad. Blue Marvel, here's what I don't like about, they let Charlemagne the God, and I even had to say, put G-O-D in his name. They let him write a book. I really don't like that dude. He's really fighting, shits on people in public or whatever.
2 pages.
Yeah, I know. And then you give him Blue Marvel and whatever, but because he was in it and because he wrote it, killed it for me. She-Hulk was a nice 1 page, girl power, got it. The Wolverine with the Hulk, I like this one. It got a few more pages. I like the story. It went somewhere, did some thinking, and it had some murder. I wasn't a fan of the art, but a good murder is always good for me. So that's my whole thing there. I think this is a book you buy as a graphic novel or end table thing, because any one of your friends can look at your end table, pick it up, and get a whole story in a few minutes sitting.
Yeah.
So for me, I think wait for the hardcover edition and put this on your, because it's going to have a lot of stories by the time this is done, right?
Well, I don't know how many issues they're doing. I don't know if this is
the only one.
Yeah, if they're going to just test the waters and it's a one shot, and if it sells well, maybe do more. So I'm curious. I hope that this does become more of a thing, because I think there's some potential here. I hope they drop the 1 page stories. I know, Emmanuel, you like the White Queen one. That could easily be 2 or 3 pages and expand on that idea, and still have the same,
Now maybe this could be a launching point for a new series. Like the things that people talk about and like about these things, some of them become series. If that is the case, I'm saying Marvel's Voices forever, right? If 2 or 3 of these, especially the Spider one, like if the Spider one comes out of this and it's a comic, his own comic, then I'm giving my blessing to Marvel's Voices forever. You have done it again. Great job. Because only good one needs to come out for it to be worth it to me. Right?
I don't even know that it needs to be its own book. Just have that be canon in the Spider-Verse now, like that,
and have him hang out with Thori the Murder Dog.
Yeah,
that's a great.
There you go. Um,
See, you like it already,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
They both murder. Dory likes the way you murder, Spider. He considers you a worthy
Goddess.
companion.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm hopeful. I really would like to see this more. I've been sort of hungry for an anthology series too, because it's nice to be able to pick up one issue, 20 pages, get 3 stories, and be done, and it's new every week. That would be really cool.
Another good thing about this is these are varied types of stories, and a lot of people only stick to 2 or 3 issues or things that they like. This
Right.
book makes you look at other characters that you might not have seen. Unlike us, who will read anybody interesting, the regular daily readers may say, "Who is this character? I never knew anything about them.
Yeah.
Who is this? Who is this Moon Girl? I like her style. Let me go read more about her." Right? So it could be this could bring the doorway into people enjoying other characters.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was I don't know. I mean, it might have been who they chose or who they let do their own stories. It was kind of to the point that you're making. It's kind of shitty that there's 2 Wolverine stories in this
Hmm.
book.
Yeah.
It's like, because Night Thrasher's on the cover. Where the hell is my Night
Yeah,
Thrasher?
where is he? Yes, I was going to say that. Hell, I barely saw Miles Morales is on the cover too, right?
Yeah, and
And he's
like,
in one panel in the other book.
he's a
Come on,
cameo.
dude.
Yeah, it's a cameo.
Right? And it's funny because you look at this and wow, most of the characters on the front cover are black. Did you notice that?
Well, yeah, that's the whole Marvel Voices thing is, the,
Black voices?
well, um,
Or more different voices, not the non-white male voices.
right, yeah, people of color and stuff like
Mm.
that. So,
But I didn't get story. I didn't get a Black Panther story. I didn't get a Storm story. I
no,
didn't get a Night Thrasher story. And I would have liked to have read that. And did we get the Black Nick Fury? Yeah, we did get a Black Nick Fury story, I think.
we did, yeah.
Yeah, that's
You're on the wrong
He didn't-
roof, motherfucker.
Tired of these ants on these roof.
and I hope they burn in hell.
Right. So, anyway, as a segue, I guess, Russ, you had posed a question in the show notes about
Yeah,
black
so
superheroes.
yeah, because I'm trying to come up with like if I created my own Black Avengers, who would they be? And same thing with Justice League. And I realized, and I've realized this before, but it just sort of came back to me that especially for the Black heroes that have been, there was a time everybody was written by white males, right? So all these characters had been there that long. All the Black characters are always tied to neighborhoods. Whereas
Right.
Superman is for the whole world or for the whole universe, Black characters are for Brooklyn or for Compton or for you know what I'm saying? They can fight if you need them and fight aliens, but then they always go back and start policing the neighborhood, right? Even Spider-Man in a way never really leaves New York home, right?
Right.
But when you look at Black characters, with the exception of Storm, who's from Africa, so that makes her different, right? But anyone born in America, they're tied to a neighborhood. Luke Cage doesn't leave his borough of New York, right? Maybe he'll go next door and help Daredevil, but he's going to come back and stay in his neighborhood. And even the Black Green Lantern comes back to his neighborhood, even though, but there are a few, he does actually go out there for the world. But most characters, when you name, if you, especially in DC, most characters Black written characters that are not written by Black people tend to be tied to their neighborhood. And no matter how great their power becomes, even if it is godlike, you will always find them in their borough, right? Al Simmons is basically all the powers of God, yet you don't really see him outside of, since he became Spawn,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You don't see him outside of the gritty part of one neighborhood. You know what I mean? You don't see him in the neighborhood of New Orleans. You don't see him, you know what I'm saying? You see him in that one part of New York, right? With God power and just fighting the evils that show up at the local bar.
Right. Yeah.
And so I wonder is this something that the writers say, this is how we see Black people, right? Unless they're from Africa. And I'm not trying to say there's some insidious thing. People write what they know and write what they understand. So that's not, no one's trying to do anybody wrong here,
Right.
right? I don't think anyone is trying to say black people aren't this or aren't that. But the newer heroes, though, are bigger. Now, if you talk about heroes that have been created later, like Blue Marvel was created by a black guy, but that's only a few years old. He is bigger than that. He's not tied to a neighborhood, right?
Right.
Right. So you get these newer characters that are black. That, but if you wanted to say, if you looked at the DC universe and you wanted to create a Justice League out of black heroes, there is no Superman analog, right? There's no one at that power level, unless you go to an alternate universe. Is there a Batman at that level? They did have one for a minute, but they killed him. You know what I'm saying? So you look at, is there Aquaman at that level where there's Black Manta's son, which is sort of related, right? Okay. And then, you know, but is there Flash at that level where he's the kid and he's the second Wally West, right? So if you look at all these major powers, how do you create a Justice League? If there was a black Justice League, are there enough characters to be there, right? Because, you know, both DC and Marvel have hundreds, possibly thousands of characters, right? But when you look at the heroes, if you look at the current Justice League in the movies, right, the only black person they brought in was Cyborg, and he was actually a Teen Titan, right? That's how he came into the game, right? So they made him older and made him part so you can have him and the Green Lantern be, you know, at least we got some color, right? And I figure it's the same for women in a lot of ways, right? But when I look at who are the heroes that look like me, and could there be a Justice League in DC Comics of black heroes?
Yeah.
And are there really enough to even do that? Marvel has a lot more, right? Marvel has a lot more newer heroes and things like that. And DC is a lot more legacy, which means that you have your Superman and then you have all the other Superman analogs. There's nobody else black in the Superman family. Your Batman may have some black later with a Black Robin or something like that, right? So most of DC is based on the Super 7 and all their spinoffs, right? Not a lot of unique characters. Marvel has a lot more unique characters. You have Night Thrasher, you have these other things, so you're going to get more of those.
What about Milestone though?
Well, Milestone was made to be a multicultural thing to begin with, right? So there are white heroes there also.
Yeah.
But a lot of the events that created them happened in shady neighborhoods, right? In ghettos, right? So it stands to reason that a lot of the characters, that there's more characters of color in those areas. So more characters get powers in those areas, right? There's a whole group that was a gang, right? So you have a lot of brown skins, you know, Latinos, black people that got powers in a gang, right? In these neighborhoods. Right. So it wasn't that, and there's still a white hero, right? And remember, even Icon, which is their Superman analog, he wasn't black to begin with. His ship just landed during slavery time, and the first person that touched his ship was an old black lady, so that's the form he took, right? So it wasn't that he, you know, and even in the comics, he was never really identified. He was, I guess, vilified in a way because of the color of his skin, but he didn't really identify with a lot of the challenges because basically he's got the power of Superman, and he wasn't born brown skinned to begin with.
Right.
So Milestone told it differently and made it a little more believable. And again, there are plenty of white characters, white male characters in that, but they also had a lot more women. They had a lot more Latinos, Latinas, a lot more Asians, you know what I'm saying? That a higher percentage, a mix of people. So I like Milestone for that, but Milestone is still out there in the wind right now, and even Static isn't showing up in the DC universe.
Right, yeah.
So, but my just thought is, when you look at Luke Cage, there is a comic book in Luke Cage. I don't know if you're old enough to remember this, you heard about it, where Dr. Doom promised to pay him for doing a job he didn't pay him. And Luke Cage went to Latveria and says, "Where's my money, honey?" In the comic, right? Yeah. I'm like, and it's like, and probably it was like $200, right? It costs more to get to Latveria, right? All right, just, you know, like, can he be smarter than that? Can he be more sophisticated than that? Right? And even now, as they have made him a little more sophisticated, he still lives in the hood. He ain't leaving, right? He's not about saving the whole world. He's not saving people, and you know, he doesn't travel and do that unless the Avengers call him. He's always going to be in New York, right?
I have the first issue of the new Strike Force series. I think is what it's
Yes.
called.
Yeah.
I have not actually read it yet, but I
Okay.
feel like that's sort of it's in the right direction, right? That's
Yeah,
closer to.
I rather we talk after you read it. I'm caught up on it.
Okay, all right.
So let's talk after you read it. But you know, you can put Blade in there because Blade is about vampires. He just happens to be, you know, he's black, but his focus is vampire. So he'll go to fucking the world of vampires if necessary, right? So
Right.
it makes sense that he's more well
Mhm.
traveled, right? You'll see him in Eastern Europe because there's a whole lot of them over there, right? So he doesn't, you know, he transcended that, but that's through the nature of his, right? But you look at Brother Voodoo or Dr. Voodoo, up until he became the next master of mystic arts, he stayed in Louisiana. Even in this
Yeah.
book that we just read, he's still in that hood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he only became worldly because he had to be, because you had master of the mystic arts can't stay in Louisiana, right? And I can go into a lot of different other comics that are, it's like the average black character, the black American character is tied to his hood and doesn't, and will rise above it for the right reason, but always return to and do most of their fighting, regardless of their power level, in their neighborhood. And like Batman, the neighborhood is never safe, no matter what they do. Gotham is still a hotbed for crime. Fucking Batman is a failure.
Right.
That's all I had to say about that. That was that commentary. I just wanted to say that when you see superheroes, when you see a black hero, do you think that he's likely to be tied to his neighbor, especially a young one, right? Like Quinn Credible in that other book that we were talking about, the guy who's indestructible. Is he going to be a neighborhood guy, or is he going to be? Do you put him on the Justice League? You remember when Black Lightning turned down the Justice League so he can go back to his hood? Right?
I
There's
don't.
on the cover, he was like, fuck you guys, I ain't down. And he goes back to fucking his borough in Metropolis or Harlem or wherever, right? Because he just does. And I'm not hating, I love the character, right? But Black Lightning is supposed to be, you know, even in his own TV show, right? The current TV show, he's in Freeland. He ain't leaving Freeland, right? He ain't trying to be part of a bigger group. Even though they made that possible with the merging of the universes, he ain't leaving Freeland. The Flash at least goes to Central City, Coast City, you know what I mean? Even if it's speediness, right?
Right.
The Flash will at least go to other, and Arrow would go to, you know, Green Arrow would come to other cities, right? And follow where the crime was. Even though Green Arrow was like, you're failed. This city, not these other motherfucking cities. This city. So, you know, and I like I call them street level heroes, right? If I had to have a team, so instead of creating a Justice League, I said, what if I create a street level Super 7? Well, then all of a sudden I could find more black heroes.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what that's where you see them, right? In the hood doing their thing. There's one book, there's a guy called Muhammad X. He only exists for one Superman comic, never seen before, never seen since.
Really?
Where he has a dialogue where Superman goes and drops into the hood that he normally flies over. Do you remember that? And he's like, Superman, what the fuck are you doing here? You don't come here. Well, I fight crime everywhere. He says, no, you don't. You fight crime in the shiny white areas. I'm the one in here doing this work, right? I'm the one that these kids look up to because you ain't doing nothing here. You fly over. You don't come here to stop crime, right? And so then he had a big thing and, you know, basically shitted on Superman. And then Superman went to Lois, am I really like that? Lois, no, you're a Superman for the whole world. You're not, whatever. Anyways, all in one book. And but it's if you look up Muhammad X, you'll see him on the cover of Superman book, and that is the only issue he ever showed up in ever.
Never to be heard from again.
Never to be heard from again. But it was interesting. Came out in 2002, but it was interesting enough. Well, Muhammad X keeps showing Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X.
Was that the series where Superman just started to walk through different neighborhoods?
Nope, this is even farther back.
Huh.
Yeah, this is
so if you do
Superman,
Muhammad X and then comic.
Yeah, Superman Volume 2, issue 179, August 2002.
Right, and you know where you could find them because you know that already. But anyway, that's dialogue might be worth you seeing. I say take a look. I'd like to discuss that if you're interested. If you do go and find that book, we can talk about it again offline if need be.
Yes, the style of artistry in that comic definitely denotes the time.
Alrighty, gentlemen. It's been real and it's been good this week, I think.
But has it been real good?
I could say maybe good, really.
Okay,
Good, really.
I'll go with that.
All right. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
Despite me still choosing X-Men comics, I'm still not an X-Men fan.
And on that note, we're out. Really, Emmanuel? Still not an X-Men fan?
Nope,
Look,
not quite.